Okay, so we should provide everybody solutions maybe, because I think that, are we being too gloomy? I think back to our original conversation that building relationships and having these relationships with people you work with matters. And I think somewhat the more we can do that and give an experience that brings to life the benefit your company offers, I think helps this problem we're talking about. That creating a dialogue again, building relationships, doing these things we were talking about in the beginning, I think helps.
Hi, friends. Welcome to the Sales Enablement Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Paul. That was Darin Dawson. Darin's the president and co-founder of BombBomb. You know, there's been so much talk about video and sales over the past couple of years, most are connected to using services like Zoom or Teams for sales calls with buyers. I mean, that's all well and good, very effective, but most of the communications that sellers have with buyers are asynchronous. They're not interactive. They're messages in one form or another. So in this episode from the archives, the Sales Enablement Podcast, Darin and I talk about the power of video messaging to effectively move deals forward. If nothing else, we've learned over the last several years, sellers and buyers have become much more comfortable with video, or at least they should have by now. And it just makes sense for all sellers to extend the use of video into all forms of communications with the buyers. So Darin and I dig in the steps you can take to level up your video messages. Make sure you check those out. But before we get to Darin, I want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it. And if you subscribe, we'd certainly appreciate it if you could also give us your feedback about how we're doing in the form of a review. So thank you. All right, let's jump into it. Darin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andy. It's great to be back with you, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you again. So I know there's probably not many folks who aren't familiar with BombBomb, but just in case, tell us a little bit about BombBomb.
I'm sure there's plenty. Yeah, so we're a platform that we enable human-centered communication. We want you to be face-to-face more often with more people, and the way we do that is through video. So we make it very simple for you to create video, send video through any medium you might use, whether it be email, text, Messenger, LinkedIn, social media, things like that. And you might think, well, don't those platforms already do that? Yes, but we enable you to know what's going on the other side of that communication. So we focus most of our time on the recipient experience, on how your recipient engages with this type of interaction. Did they watch it? Did they like it? Can we get more engagement from them? Can they comment on it? So, instead of just this one way kind of sending something and waiting and wondering maybe at some points, depending where you're at in your career, did they receive it? Did they care? We help you to understand that more.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of interesting, this idea of, and everyone wants to call it asynchronous video usage these days. I like to call it just video messaging, just to keep it simple. But I think that, interestingly, sort of in the wake of what's happened in 2020 and people sort of being fatigued by Zoom, but also learning lessons of the effectiveness of videos, they're saying, I want to interact with my buyer. I want to use video, but it doesn't need to be live.
Right. I want them to see me. I think.
Right.
I even think that in a lot of ways, even before the pandemic, we handcuffed the best talents maybe of our salespeople, of our customer success people, of maybe ourselves when we just send an email. It's black text and a white screen, and when we know that humans emote, they have animation, right? I talk with my hands. You can see that if you're watching this. The way we communicate often is more nonverbal than it is verbal, or definitely written. We lose even more. And so bringing that back, and when it was removed from us, the absolute ability to be face-to-face at all, people found this as a way to kind of circumvent the problem. But now I think they're finding it now more, it's becoming more of the norm. It's becoming more of a way to even sometimes flatten the sales process. We see if I sent a video, maybe I do a screen capture, for instance, something we allow you to do. A screen capture, proposal review. I'm the account executive. I want you, Andy, to understand, the things that I want to make sure you see in this. I might highlight them, right? Now that can be shared. You can now share that. What used to maybe be yet another meeting with more people to get buy-in, you can just share that with these other people. So it's actually, it can condense that time to close. It can condense that need for more meetings, more time. So we're seeing that flatten a bit in that process and maybe skipping some of these typical checkpoints in that process along the way. So that's been interesting to see that too.
Right.
So
What would be normally Zoom calls?
yeah. Or in-person meetings.
Well, previously in-person meetings. But
Previously,
we'll just,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, and maybe again, but
Right. Hopefully.
well, let's just take the things that would be Zoom calls even normally now, right? I mean, Zoom existed before the pandemic, in case anybody
That's
wasn't
right.
aware of that.
I've
And
been a user for years before the
yeah,
pandemic.
me
Yeah.
too. I've been using it extensively, whether it's that or Skype or so on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is yeah, it was still in danger of being overused even then.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, not everything requires real-time interaction, to your point, right?
Because that is the most valuable thing is our time.
Right.
And so,
Right.
right, being able to deliver a message that you could watch on your time and then decide, and I can deliver it on my time, create it and send it on my time. Right. There's this time trade-off there that works.
Well, but I also think that it speaks to what you talk about too, is sorts of sharing, right? Is so if you can track how it's being shared and opened by other people throughout an organization, that sales intelligence is really important information to have. And
Absolutely.
and you sort of have at least for me, as I was thinking, okay, well, gosh, I could call another Zoom meeting. I get 5 or 6 people on the call, and 3/4 of them won't say a thing. The
Right.
dominant personality will monopolize the conversation. These other people that are important, did they really, what did they think?
Yep.
And oftentimes, we could create, to your point, maybe there's a point we missed in a demo. I wanted to emphasize something that I did in a demo, record screen capture, point this out, make a couple salient points, ask for questions, send it out, get shared.
The recap of the demo is definitely a use case that is accelerated because of the pandemic, right? So this idea that I've done the demo, I'm going to do a recap of the demo, really
Right.
go to the points that you'd ask me questions on, illustrate those points with my face, and then with the screen capture,
Right.
and then have that get shared, and you can then see the sharing of that, and then are you penetrating into that buyer circle? Are you getting more
Right.
visibility within the organization? I think those are things you wonder about and you hope that are happening. You might ask your champion if that's happening, but you don't know for sure. And so I think that's interesting. We can start to see some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's sort of a no-brainer, but I understand, why people. Well, maybe I don't understand, but I understand. I understand one level why people aren't doing it, or that people aren't doing it. But I think this is a tool, as we talk about. Okay, we've all adopted to Zoom-based selling over the last year. If you weren't using it before, you're using it now, and if you were using it before, you're using it more intensively.
Yeah.
But it's not the best vehicle for communications in all cases. Where video is strong and compelling, but Zoom is not always the answer. And I've really been surprising people recently. I've been trying to say, just sort of arbitrarily, let's see if I can do 50% of my calls on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I don't know, you experiencing this? I got people say, we're doing a phone call? They say, yeah, there wasn't a link in the invite. How are we going to talk? I said, I thought we'd just do a phone call. A phone call?
How novel.
Yeah, it's like,
well,
let's
last time we chatted was on the phone.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. I like to think of myself though, Andy. I'm like the apostle of, I think humans are better face to face. So
Yes.
where I do agree, I had a phone call the other day. It's not as novel for me. I think that picking up the phone is just fine. But yeah, in a new relationship, I would just argue that if I had a relationship, that's fine. In a new relationship, I like to get to know people still. I think that this pandemic has limited, again, our abilities to maybe our best selves. I like being around people and I miss it. And so even this
absolutely.
is better, right? Than I just miss seeing and being. I was on a plane over 100,000 miles a year, and I enjoyed it. I like going to conferences, meeting people, engaging in dinner and all that. That's all, boom, gone. So this is all we get anymore. So I do lament that a bit, personally.
Right.
Yeah. I'm a sales
Yeah.
guy at heart. I'm a sales guy at heart. I love people. I like helping people win. I like leading that way. I miss my team. So this is the best
Oh,
we got. But Zoom fatigue is real, and so
it's very
just
real.
it's not the same. And so I can get why sometimes just taking a phone call, I can look out my window and you're not offended, right? Like I can stare off into the distance, or I can pet my dog or something.
Well, but I also think that there's been some preliminary research on this. I mean, it even came out almost pre-pandemic. I remember reading this because enough people are already on Zoom extensively enough that
Yeah,
this idea of Zoom fatigue existed.
yeah,
And preliminary research is saying, look, you actually listen better on a phone. You actually can capture the nuance more on a phone. And I think that the same sort of true with video messaging, asynchronous video communication, is people are going to hear you better.
yeah.
When you're
I
sending
agree.
something, it's because there are no distractions in the same respect that you
And you
get
can
when
you
you're on
can
a
choose to
conference,
view it when you have time to view it. I think is the
when you
thing.
have
And
time to
I'm not
focus on it.
right. I'm not multitasking. And let's face it, we're all multitasking now. While we're on these Zoom calls, we're
Except
taking
this one,
care of
because I know you're
sick.
completely focused on me.
I am. Well, I'm not. I can't. This is different. This is a conversation. I think one on one is cool. But when I'm one of 12 faces, am I really as
Yeah,
engaged as I am now? Probably not.
yeah. Well,
Can
let's
we
let's talk
talk
about that.
about something you brought up was
Sure, go ahead.
why people don't do it? Because I have ideas
Yeah.
about why people don't do it. I
Oh,
think
let's get into it.
it's like this perfection thing. I think we've been
Yes.
we've been watching the 10 p.m. news or the 11 p.m. news for 20, 30 years as adults, and we think maybe, or we grew up in this and we saw this and we thought we got to be this way. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be
Right.
lit a certain way. It's got to be, perfection is a problem. And so I think it stops people from sending the video and they worry that's not professional. Do you think that?
I think that's part of it. I think that's perhaps a little less so because we've spent the last year looking at people's cats and dogs and people in their
Yep.
pajamas with their bed behind them and so on. But I think the other aspect of it is that when people are looking at recording a video, is it seems more performance oriented than being in a conversation.
And maybe
And so,
I don't think I have those skills.
yeah, I mean, I think like I'm on stage, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it bleeds into the perfection aspect of it for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Okay. I like
But it's
that.
like I have to put this mask on, whereas opposed if I'm just in a conversation with somebody, yeah, in sales I may have my sales mask, quote unquote mask on,
Sure.
but it's not the same,
Sure.
right? I feel more comfortable, and I think that when I talk to people, still there more than perhaps the perfection thing. I think they're getting over
We
somewhat,
work on
but
this a
it's
lot, just being yourself on the call and
yeah,
trying to work with people this way because this is the obstacle to it. You roll this out, your VP of sales thinks it's a great idea, and so everybody gets it. And then we have, some people adopt fast, and this is kind of like with any software. And some people though,
sure,
the hang up is around this. Well, I don't like how I look on camera. I don't like how
yeah.
I sound on camera. And so we spend a lot of time working through this with folks. It's okay. Send some to the
But have they
folks that
gotten
you
over it
know.
in this
Some
last year?
do and
Have people
some
gotten?
don't.
Yeah,
Some don't
yeah,
and some do. Right. I think overall confidence is an issue we work on in our teams. People need to build confidence in their career. I think kind of depends. You're probably fine talking to anybody at this point, Andy. You've done this so much, it doesn't right. You're not, but if maybe for newer, because we get a lot of teams that are in this BDR role, and frankly, they're
right.
usually younger in their career, and so it's
Sure.
newer, and how they're perceived is a big deal. So we work on a lot of that. I think what you mentioned too about people in their pajamas. I'm like, I just gotta get on my soapbox for a second. This is what
Go
my
ahead.
challenge is to people. I say this to my own team. Look, if you were getting on a plane tomorrow and you're going to go to Detroit and you're going to meet this customer in their boardroom, how would you dress? Okay, how would you dress? Now, does that change at all how you then are presenting yourself on that Zoom call or through that video email or through that video message? Does it? Does it make you think about it at all? And they go, yeah, it does. I'm like, okay, then maybe it's not the pajamas. Maybe put on a collared shirt. I don't know.
As you and I both have T-shirts on.
Both of us have T-shirts on. It's a safe environment. But if I was meeting with the CEO of one of our big customers, I wouldn't have a T-shirt on. So
no,
I just want to. I think this digital transformation, we don't have to transform into the T-shirt kings of the world. I've gotten a lot of demos lately that's like a little casual. I'm like, man, okay, I guess we're just this is changing. I don't know. What do you think about that? Am I out of my mind?
Well, I think yes. I think there'll be a change back. I think
did we go too far?
Too long.
Maybe.
I think once people get spending more time with each other again, they'll see that things will change a little bit. But I think there is a trend towards forced casualness, if that's the right word.
That's great.
And I posted about this last year on LinkedIn and it got this huge response. And the post was, if you send me an email or you're talking to me, I'm not your buddy, right? I'm not your pal. And this is mostly a guy thing, right? That's
might be. I think it might be. I think it is. You're right. I mean,
women aren't calling me sweetie or honey or dear.
Oh, yeah.
They would never dream of it, right? So, and you've just seen like sort of the backlash. It's like, oh God, you're so conservative. It's like, no.
Or am I just professional?
Are you just professional?
Am I being professional? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're not at the level, the relationship's not at that level yet. So don't presume on it.
Yeah. We don't know each other yet. So I don't know. I've just been noticing that. We've been looking at some different software, purchasing software. I'm like, man, some of these account executives just show up like, it's like we're hanging out at a coffee shop in downtown Seattle somewhere. I don't know. Like it's interesting.
Well, yeah, I saw a video actually, was it last night or this morning, of a video message that an AE had sent. And my first reaction was, as yours, was like, just a step too far. I'm all in favor of being casual. I mean, I've worked casual most of my career. I mean, I was part of the generation that got rid of the suit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
I don't own a tie, but
yeah. Well, I haven't worn a suit except at my wedding, probably in the last 20 years. But it's like, yeah, I think.
But some of this, I think, is we have to size up.
It's
who
a reflection.
We're talking to, like our customer. Who's the customer we're talking to? So this customer of ours in Detroit, they wear suits and ties every day. That's another thing, right? So if that's a suit and tie organization, I probably still not going to put on a tie at this point, but I might put the jacket on if I was in their office. It's just
but there's a rule
thing to think about. What's that?
Right. There's a rule of thumb for public speaking.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
You always say, well, how should I dress? And the rule of thumb is you dress one level better than your customer or your audience.
Yep. And so I think I could be making a case against video right now, and somebody listening might say, well, this is exactly why I'm not going to do this, right? But I think we can raise the bar here because I think it's very effective if done appropriately. I just think I'm trying to point out one of the things I've been seeing is a trend like, man, if we could true that up a little bit, I think it'd go a long way and it even help be more effective.
Well, it's one of those things it costs you nothing. Correct. Right? So just be mindful about it. And that's the same point I was making with the buddy pal thing is get rid of it. What's it cost you? I mean, what point are you trying to make by saying
whenever someone addresses me as bud, we're not getting off to the right foot
we are
anyway.
Not getting off on the right foot.
No.
And also, for me, it just sort of says, well, okay, did you look at my profile at all? I mean, so
right.
Did you think just based on my age and my background and the work I've done and so on that
I'm a bud person?
That I'm your buddy if you're a 24-year-old guy reaching out to me? No, right? No. Use a little common sense. So, yeah, the same thing. I think your point is absolutely true. costs you nothing to go put a collared shirt on. You feel like you have a moral line in the sand that you need to be showing people that you have to be casual. It's like so many things in sales is you get pushback from people these days of saying certain segments that I don't agree with, saying, oh, the personal relationship's not quite as important as it was. You don't need to be likable. I'm like, it costs you nothing to do these
Well,
things.
why not be likable?
Yeah, it costs you nothing to do it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to be? What point are you trying to make?
Look, I've had a successful career. I can't see it going that way if I didn't attempt to build relationships with folks and hopefully I still think people do business with people they know, like, and trust. That might be old school, but I really think that's how it is. And even moreover in the software stuff, right? You look, features are features. It's just a matter of telling our dev team to go build the thing you built. If you're competing on features anymore, you're in trouble, I think. And so what are you competing, right? What are you competing on? So if you're competing on, to me, we're competing on somewhat likability might want to be one of these things we're competing on. Capability, right? Do we have the wherewithal? But these are big deals. Like, it's different. I mean, so I think likability is a big thing. And I think they choose us because they like us and the features are somewhat the same.
Well, and the likability, to your point, I think you were just making, extends beyond the individual to the enterprise as well.
The business. Yeah, to me, it's all. It speaks to the customer experience you're delivering, and it's, to me, another reason why uniquely video allows you to experience who my people are above what the brand is. And we try to articulate these brands, but you can't experience my people, and my people are some of my best things, and that's why we've been successful. Is because you met Justin Dornbos at an event, and he was great, and you liked him, or you like Katie, she's really nice, and she was really smart about video, and so you called her back. These people are the reason we got where we are, and then some great technology along the way, but they led the charge. And so I think that's what you choose, right? Because it can't be about features anymore, because we can just build that. We just get money, build features.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's been the case for
a while now.
Is the barrier to entry at almost any market, certainly in the tech space, is exceedingly low, unless you're, some radical invention you've made, and even then somebody will copy it shortly. So yeah, what are you competing on?
That's right.
But I build on a point that you made, which is I might flip it, and I think increasingly a company's brand is its people. 100%. Grammatically, either one sounds wrong, but I can give you chapter and verse. You look on companies that have built brands largely on the back of what's happening on LinkedIn with their employees being empowered to be out there and be themselves and be visible and be content creators and so on. It's like, the people are increasingly the brands. And if you're not using tools like BombBomb video messaging, you're sort of handcuffing your folks, and the folks are handcuffing themselves.
And again, I think, I know my people are better face to face. That's why we hired them. Especially in sales, it's like you hire them, you have this. What are you looking for? Are you looking for someone who can't build rapport quickly, or someone who can build rapport quickly? Right. Typically, you're hiring them because they can build. Well, I hope it. Yeah, to me, I just can't get there. But even in the customer success, is this someone who can make a customer? Can you empathize with the customer, or can you not? These are human skills. They are not technical skills. They're soft skills, you might say. And so how do we best exhibit them and put them forward to our customers to give them that experience that, wow, working with this company is not like working with other companies that I've experienced, right? That's our goal. Yep. I want that to feel. I want them to feel us more than anything. Yeah.
And I agree 100%, especially when you're a smaller company, you're trying to grow and scale, and you're trying to
even
sell
more
big deals. Yeah. So important. And one company I worked with, sort of first in the door on our commercial side, they were doing some defense work, and I started the commercial side of the business. We're small, but every deal we competed against huge huge multinational corporations, and we were, a handful of millions of dollars early on. And yeah, even before I got there, the CEO was just so good at making people feel like, wow, these people are really smart. We need to find a way to work with them, right? Just
I
the
think that's key,
experience
man.
of talking to him and the team was just like, wow. And yeah, and
Yeah.
they still do that. I mean, but even all the years I was there, this is how we won business is people's impression of the enterprise based on their experiences of the individuals was decisive.
Yeah. And do you feel at all that now it seems to me like we don't, well, okay, after we get done talking today, I'll go back to my inbox or anything I have, my phone, if it's
Mm.
LinkedIn, and I'll have messages from people.
Yes.
Okay. And I just feel like we're actually accelerating in the opposite direction, maybe, in what we've just been talking about. Because I don't believe anymore that these emails or these messages actually came from people. Now, they might be people's
Yep.
names and those people might be real, but I don't believe anymore that they actually came from a human. And I think it makes it
Right.
easier for me to ignore them. Like,
Yes. I
I
agree.
feel
I agree.
nothing. I feel nothing. Click, shift, delete. Like,
Yep.
I feel nothing. Where I used to, I
Yep.
get 3 or 4, and if it was like, I could tell it was actually from some, I'd actually feel maybe a little guilt deleting it. Now I don't.
Well,
And right?
yeah, I'm the same way. So I get, yeah,
Tons.
I get roughly 1,000 cold pitches a year to be a guest on the show.
Yeah.
And yeah, the ones that I can tell are, we personalized, insert
They get a
Andy's
little bit.
podcast name in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just,
And I get it too.
yeah,
I get the boilerplate solicitation for in
yeah.
my role. And I'm just like, I don't know. And so maybe someone is real in that, but I still delete them. I just think we have this escalation of, it's almost like I call it digital pollution. It's like
Right.
this escalation of nuclear holocaust of email messaging, like, and then we don't
Well,
believe it's from humans. And so there's good things for artificial intelligence, but I think we might be in the cusp of like having negative effects.
I agree 100%. It's gotten worse in the last year, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and at least in my estimation. But yeah, no, I think it's one of the paradoxes of the
Yeah.
fact is that we we are we are trying as a technology industry, especially in the sales and marketing space,
Right.
we're trying to create tools to solve the problems that we created with the tools that we created in the first place.
That's very good. Yeah.
And that's what it is, right?
But then I gotta accelerate
Marketing
my
automation was
ability.
the first start. Yeah, sorry, marketing automation was the first start. We learned how to bombard people, and now we've
Yep.
been trying to create tools subsequent to that to help us personalize and do other things to help us break through the noise
Yep.
that we're continuing to create.
And
Yes,
then
I agree.
if you're breaking through the noise, I got to figure out a way to break through the noise because we're competing for the same person, even though our products might not compete. Are you with me? Like that. And so I just think there's a lot more noise in the space and we keep accelerating. And I start to worry for us about, is there a negative or an inverse effect of am I celebrating a 20% open rate? And like we would, right? But what
Yeah.
about the 80%? What about the 80% that said, I hate you maybe, or I'm so sick of
Well,
getting this from you, or and so I just
right.
think we need to do a better job like narrowing our ideal customer profiles and getting more focused on those folks and trying to do maybe a bit more with less is what we're trying to
Yes.
do. And that's what we call human-centered communications. Like I should care more about you on the other side as a recipient than I do about my goal. And that's tough when you got the number you got to hit. I get that. But man, if we just slowed down, because I think it's just going to have an inverse reaction, especially when you have companies like Apple saying, you know what, permission only. If you don't get permission, you don't get access.
Right.
Or Google saying,
Right.
no more. We're not going to let you do cookies across platforms. You know, it's going to
Right.
take this Facebook thing. I think permission is going to get popular again. I'm just
Yep.
throwing it out there as a
Well, yeah, starting
prediction,
with Apple for sure. Starting with Apple for
right?
sure.
I mean, a
Yeah,
lot of Tim
and
Cook is getting very belligerent about this. I mean, they're saying these things. I mean, I think it's going to happen. So,
well,
okay.
it's going
So
to
what's that
happen
mean?
shortly.
What's permission
Well,
look like?
yeah.
How's that change
Well,
for you?
well, to your point, we've abused this on the business level in terms
You've been,
of
yes, yes,
marketing automation and so on. And yeah, the the fundamental problem is people have a limited quantity of attention.
that's right.
And Herbert Simon, Nobel Prize winner, wrote about this back 40 years ago. Wrote a white paper, yeah, 1971, I think it was, sort of projecting the fact of what the internet was going to be. It says there's going to be a time when we're going to be so bombarded by various sources of information that we're going to have a hard time making a decision about how to allocate slices of our attention to various sources of information. How do we make those decisions? And he was doing research on that back 40 years ago. But his conclusion was that, basically simplifying it, was that we make an ROI calculation. Is we're going to devote our attention, our limited attention, to those things that give us the best return on that investment of time.
Yep.
So that then becomes the challenge, right? How do you break through the noise to be able to provide somebody a return on that 20 seconds of time or a minute of time or however long they were engaging with what you sent them?
Yep. That is, I don't think that's going to change. I just think maybe how we need to approach that. We got, I think the shift is coming quicker than maybe anybody's going to be prepared for it. And when that movement happens, are we going to be ready? I want to be ready. I'm just trying to think about that now, right? Like,
Yeah.
I
Well, so how do you make, bomb ready? I'm not from a product standpoint, but from the ability to outreach standpoint.
yeah, how do we position it? I believe, so our motto in marketing is be of value and abundance will follow, right? So we just really try and bring value. We try and narrow our ideal customer profiles to people we know that we brought value to and try and position it that way. But we literally say, we do send, I think people would say this is unscalable. We send personal videos and would say, hey, Andy, Darin with BombBomb. We work with other companies just like yours that do this, this, and this. And then we go into that. And it's different, right? Because we're saying your name. So that it is a personal message. And so it's personal as long as you open it up. It's personal.
Right.
I think that's different than personal lies.
You got Ethan's personal whiteboard. He's written the date, or he's written "Hi Andy" on it.
That's right. It's for Andy.
Right.
I think in somewhat in the financial world or in some of those other spaces that verification that's really for you and from me is going to be important. And I think potentially video could play a role in this, because how do we know that it's authentically and verified for you from me? You have deep fakes. Now we can make the president say whatever they want, right? We can make whoever president it is, we can make them words come out of your mouth. It doesn't matter. That's going to be a problem. I think in the future, this personal for you from me with value, not more of a mass approach. It's just going to have to be more effective. I look, if you were effective with the 10,000 emails you were sending, you wouldn't need to do that, because if your conversion rate was better, right, you'd make more than enough money to meet your number for the year. But the fact is we're not. And so some of the problem is in the messaging, something that's in the messenger, and some of it's in the delivery. But we're training a whole population of people to just ignore everyone really badly, I think. So somehow I love that if anybody else is with me, we could just all do an armistice together. Slowly step away from the red buttons. Slowly step away. Who's with me?
Well, I mean, interesting. Yeah, you have described this mutually assured destruction scenario.
I don't mean to be so grim, but I think some people can maybe relate to this.
Well, it's getting that way. Absolutely, it's getting that way.
Ask yourself: do you have increasing returns or diminishing ones? And so if they're, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't have this problem. You're like, oh, it's great. It's fine. It's worth, because it's a numbers game to people, and it usually maths out in the CFO's mind. Escalate the ammunition, bomb them away, and then see what happens. So as long as that still maths out, I guess I probably won't win anybody over. But
Well, but here's the problem, though, is that it's really a slash and burn strategy, and at some point you run
Yeah.
out of things to burn, right?
Is
I
your
mean, for
TAM
people familiar with
infinite?
slash and burn, agriculture is and but we're doing it on two levels, though. So we're doing it certainly on the top of the funnel, as you just described, but certainly in the tech space and SaaS, we're doing it at the bottom of the funnel as well with low win rates. And
Interesting.
so
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
we're getting tons of people into the funnel, and if only
But
one in
with your
five
conversion,
are winning, if you're only winning 1 out of 5, what you're saying is that 80% of our prospects think that we weren't presenting a compelling enough vision of success to buy from us.
that's right. Yeah.
And that's
That's
not
what I
good
mean.
either.
Somewhat the message is the problem. Sometimes it is the messenger, but you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, are we actually solving a problem that these people have? How narrow have we gotten in our ideal profile that the people we're talking to? We know we can solve their problems, right? Often we don't lead with those problems, and I think we just again, I think a good question to ask yourself is your addressable market infinite? Mine
Oh,
isn't.
no, no.
Mine isn't.
There are
Okay,
very few
so
companies that have that.
So do some math. How long before you're just retreading the people who ignored you the first time? I mean, okay, yeah, it's
Well,
just
the same
easy
thing
because
works.
you're going to blast through your market eventually.
Well, but the same thing is true after they're in your funnel. If you're only winning 1 of every 5, you can do the
Exactly. Yeah.
math. And I've done this in the past. And I don't have it in front of me, but you don't have many years before you've completely trashed your market.
Yep. So, okay, so we should provide everybody solutions maybe because I think that are we being too gloomy? I think back to
No.
our original conversation that building relationships and having these relationships with people you work with matters. And I think somewhat the more we can do that and give an experience that brings to life the benefit your company offers, I think helps this problem we're talking about. That creating a dialogue again, building relationships, doing these things we were talking about in the beginning, I think helps.
Well, you're right. And I agree. And I think that part of that gets down to is and this is, one of the conundrums of, we talk primarily tech here and a lot of VC funded companies that have
Sure.
certain sense of urgency around how they
Correct.
scale is it's going to take a CEO to say, no, we're going to do it differently.
Yeah.
And you're still going to give me money. And we're still, maybe instead of 3 years, we'll get there in 5. But we're going to get there.
That
And
is the
that's
hardest
hard part.
thing. That is the hard
Right.
part, and I get that. So maybe, yeah, VCs, if you're listening, think about that. I mean, I don't think many of them have
but
patience for that, but
Right. But in some ways, that's where it's going to have to start. It's going to start with the CEO. It's going to have to it'll start with sellers saying, look, this is not sustainable anymore.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing that happen. I think we're seeing sellers, especially with turnover rates, and look at the churn rate on CROs at 18 months in the valley and so on.
you took the words out of my mouth. That's
Right.
and,
So none of
when
that
we
works.
talk to, are your sales reps attaining quota, or is it not? Are they not? Do you have BDRs that have never hit quota? If that's happening, your number's high, too high. I mean, it's happening, I think. So I know it is. I've talked to the BDRs. I've talked to the VPs. It's like in these closed doors,
Yep.
like nobody's hitting quota. What do I do? I'm like, you got to lower the number, man.
The quota, right? Or
Well, I can't do that because so-and-so. I'm like, well, tell him he's
re-engineer
wrong or she's wrong. But yeah.
right. Or re-engineer your process.
Yep. Figure it out. That's the game
I
we're
tell
all
people,
in.
right, is think about it from the perspective of the theory of constraints. In my experience growing startups, is the constraint was never the number of people I had. It was understanding what we were selling and to whom. And once we engineered our process to achieve a certain win rate with those factors, then we scaled based on that. And what I found is actually
at that point.
But yeah, we could scale quite a bit without adding a ton of people. And then we added people when we needed. And you tend to scale pretty fast because you knew how to sell what you were selling. Effectively, you weren't winning 1 out of every 5 deals. You're maybe winning 2.5 out of every 5 deals. And that's fine. That's where you want to be. So
yeah, that's the interesting thing that we do get. I think some of those standards have been lowered over my career for sure about what's acceptable. Like you just said, like 1 out of 8. Wow. mean, but if you have an unlimited amount of money you can burn through, I guess it's okay.
And
I
that's
think
what some are doing.
another thing I'd like to say is I hope that profitability becomes trendy again. That would be great. Like if EBITDA was maybe more of something that we looked at. I think I'm biased, man. So we've never taken serious venture capital to date. Sure. So we've tried to grow. I've been doing this for 10 years. We're like, oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm crazy, but I still own my business and I'm still growing.
Right.
Maybe not these astronomical rates, but I didn't burn the money either.
No.
And we're profitable.
Right.
So to me, that's what I'm trying to do, create a profitable business. I treat it like we could sell tomorrow, but I don't have any plans to, right? So I know I'm coming at it from a different position. I just want to state that for everyone listening. Like, who is this guy? Like, sounds crazy.
I spent 7 years with a company that was bootstrapped, primarily bootstrapped, and they'd raised maybe $250,000 in venture money, but largely bootstrapped.
Right.
In the communication space, the competitors were zooming by us to go public. This was during the heyday of the 90s. Everybody was going public. The CEO says, look, we've been profitable from day one. We're going to stay profitable. We're going to do what we need to do. We're going to move at our own pace. Here we went public. We were successful. And now, even a couple of decades after that, it's a multi-billion-dollar company, and every other competitor that zoomed by us is gone. Right? And it's just,
or their founders. Look, I'm biased towards the founder too. I just want to actually make money off this endeavor I've had for 10 years. Not that you can't. I'm not saying that, but look, I just want to wear a shirt that says "Make profitability sexy again." That's one of my life goals.
Well, put it on. Let's see it.
I got to get it made.
All right. Well, I agree with you. I think, people live by like the rule of 40 in SaaS, right? And
yes.
Rule of 40 doesn't require you being profitable, and yet you can still be valued highly. So, on future promises, it's almost like the old eyeball argument. So, all right. So, Darin, we're running out of time here. People want to connect with you. What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I'm easily found on LinkedIn. Please give me a personal. It doesn't have to be video, but just a personal message would be fantastic. I guarantee you a response. If it's, hey, Darin, love the podcast or whatever, just don't make it personal.
Yeah, actually, when people contact me and say, Andy, love the podcast, I can, about 80% of the time, it's not a human. It's been generated.
Okay. Well, you know what I mean. I would love it to be somewhat personal.
Yeah. If somebody says, enjoyed you on this podcast, then it's a human.
Absolutely. I would love to hear that. Yeah. Or or if you disagree with me, think I'm crazy. Yeah, that works too. At least I'll know it's a real message.
All right. Well, Darin, a pleasure as always. And I look forward to doing this again.
You too. So good. Thank you so much.
Okay, friends, that's it for this episode. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I am so grateful for your support of the show. And I want to thank my guest, Darin Dawson, for sharing his insights with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, Sales Enablement with Andy Paul, on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, thank you so much for investing your time with me today. Until next time, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.